Oil painter, tribal dancers.
We're live, and Danny's talking about his prior life resumes. And I've already put a question up for Danny, because I have to go away for a minute and pull over a slide. So, Danny, it's you. Do you want me to make you big?
No, hang on. I'm turning off my phone. Why don't you introduce this other guy?
Oh, this other guy is Sean Briscoe.
Turning my phone off.
He works with the Broadway group, and they consult on the ground, really what I call real campaigning, where the campaigns really happen. And he's going to talk to us today. One of his reasons for doing that is to tell us how we can work, get ourselves out of our morass, turn Danny and I off, and go and find who's got someone mowing lawn.
Oh, that's me. I apologize. It's the neighbor. It's nothing I can do about it.
Okay.
They'll be done shortly.
Okay.
I can mute me.
I want to make sure it's not just some random person trying to block us. Anyway, Sean will be going on the ground in Michigan and Wisconsin. You start on the 9th? Okay.
Yep.
But we thought, since Danny doesn't do long shows, no, he wants to get in and out of this one, honey. He's going to come and he's going to do a reading on the question that's on the and I'm going to go get the slide. You guys have no idea what this has been like. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. And I'm so confused. I thought Nancy Jean was bringing me on to talk about Broadway and to sing and dance, and it's like I'm lost. This is politics. I thought I was singing and dancing.
Well, we do a little bit of that too.
All right. Well, let's look into Linda's question. Tapping into the energy. What are the two reasons? What are the reasons for two Supreme Court justices? Well, let's just see what we can get with just one Supreme Court justice.
Yes.
Yeah, who would that be that is going to be? Let's look at the one stepping down first. Who is the justice? First Supreme Court justice that is going to step down. Why? Sowing confusion. Ooh, illness. Oh, gosh. Well, this isn't a good way to start off a reading. You have the Seven of Cups, illusion, delusion. You have the Four of Swords, which is retreat, illness. So who has been sowing the most confusion? Then at the bottom of the reading, the Death card. Yikes. So
yeah, that's what I've been seeing. That's what I've been seeing for a certain chubby little dark judge.
Well, that's who I was thinking of. But this, I think we just need to take a little moment to be thankful that these cards aren't about us. Wow. Oh, it's there's a lot of finance going on. I think it's in the past.
It's got Thomas written all over it.
What's that?
It's got Thomas written all over it.
Oh, yeah. The past was the money giving and taking. At the top of the reading is the Joe Biden card, bringing forth some new information. So let me ask you political guys, because I'm still thinking of Broadway musicals. What would it take for Joe Biden to? What's the process in him putting more Supreme Court judges on the bench without like somebody going that route?
Without them,
that'd be expanding the court, which would be an act of Congress and the Senate. And and honestly, we're long past time for an expansion. We have 13 district courts and we have 9 Supreme Court justices. I mean, we could go to 13 and it would be we've expanded the court a bunch of times whenever, it's been needed. And we're a much bigger country than we were. We're twice the size we were the last time we expanded it. And we'd only grown 25% at that point. So we're way overdue. The fact that we have 13 districts tells you everything you really need to know.
So is it just the Senate that needs to?
It'd be Congress and the Senate. It's all of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And the way the Senate's set up right now is you need 60 votes to get anything done. And you would need 60 votes to get that done. Now, with the current Republican leader stepping down, and there's gonna be a lot of change going on over the next 2 cycles, I see in the Senate specifically. They got to get rid of that rule. A simple majority is 50+1. 60 was supposed to make everyone get along and negotiate, when in reality, all it did was it gave them a minority incredible amounts of party power over the majority. And the whole point of having a majority is that's where the votes are at, you know. And it's already super weighed in the favor of the Republicans anyway in the Senate, because think about all the states that are Republican and look at their populations. And if you want to talk about how much it costs to win, like Alabama versus California, it's not even the same food group. You've got a population that's I want to say about 1/10 that of California. Yet they have 2 senators. Well, let's look at Montana. That's a good one. Each senator their win number is about 200,000 votes. In California, it's millions of votes. I think it's 12 times the actual vote count. So that means that's how much more money you have to play. Now, the most expensive state to run in tech is California by population. Then it's Texas. Then it's New York, and Florida. And so because the more the population, the more it's going to cost to run statewide, because we're talking about statewide races. It's Senate seats. So the Republicans, they have what? They're just 1 or 2 senators shy of taking control of the Senate, but they represent 1/3 the population of the country.
Yeah.
So you have 1/3 the population of the country determining what the entire population of the country is doing. And I'm not exactly sure how that's fair. And that's what works in Congress too. That's why the Wisconsin, and I don't know if this is really going to her question, but as far as Supreme Courts, it's going to take an act of Congress. Yeah. To expand the way it works. It's part of the checks and balances.
Right. Well, and what I see with a lot of this change is we are being made more aware of what needs to change. I mean, for example, I in the past, I would be going, so what? It's going to work itself out. I'm not really that concerned with it. But because of the last 8 years, I'm super involved with it now and super aware of what needs to change. And I think a lot of us have gotten to that point to see, we need big changes. We need changes in how we're represented in the government, just by what you said. So, it doesn't make sense to have 2 senators in the state of California versus 2 senators in Montana or Idaho.
That was part of the compromise, so that the southern slaveholding states could feel that they had equal amounts of representation.
Yeah, after back in when we're back in the original 13, Virginia was a huge state, but then everything south of Virginia was country. I mean, there's an argument can be made it's still country, but Atlanta's a real city. There are real cities south of Virginia these days that obviously were nothing back then. But you gotta understand, before, if you look at every major city in the world prior to the Industrial Revolution, it was a 3-by-3 mile city. They were tiny. That's why when you go to Europe and you go to these towns, all the really cute parts of the city that are super ancient, you can actually just walk and almost hit everything, because 3 miles was how far you could move food in a day.
Huh.
Because unless it was by water, but if you're talking about land transportation, 3
Yeah.
miles is what you could do. So to feed a population, you have to be able to move food in about a day in every direction. Now, Texas is kind of set up that way in a weird way, because every county capital in Texas is 1 day's horse ride from the other county capital.
Yeehaw.
From county seat to county seat.
County seat to county seat, yeah.
That's why 60 counties that are burning up in West Texas are almost the same size.
Yeah, they're all the same size, pretty much. Because you have to be able to ride a horse A to B,
Right.
But going back to the change actually occurred when Mitch McConnell weaponized the Senate against Obama. Obama had more judicials refused than every other president that ever was elected to the United States in the history of the United States. And it's not even close. So that was Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, in my personal opinion, outside maybe Reagan's tax policies of 1982, probably did more damage to my generation and the country than any person ever.
Yeah.
Nixon is a spring rain compared to what Mitch McConnell's done to this country.
Oh, that's scary.
Well, no, think about it. Nixon and the Vietnam War killed about 65,000 Americans, right? Mitch McConnell's killed way more than that. If you look at healthcare and what he did with
for entertainment purposes only here.
No, for political. Oh no, it's all about money.
Just for
Sean, you don't understand the rules. We have to say for entertainment purposes.
Oh, for entertainment purposes only, for sure.
Or this channel will disappear.
Got it.
And I know where to find you, and I can make you disappear. So.
Oh, dang.
I don't even know where to find me. So good luck.
She's just as bad as Mitch McConnell. Don't get on the wrong side of her.
Yeah, we're in the same generation, sort of.
So the thing with, and this is something that we can talk a little bit about before, so we know we have Mitch McConnell and what a horrible person he was for the country. Who's the next person coming in?
Who's like the next most
right now
person?
It's Cornyn. Right now, Cornyn.
It's like a 9-way tie thing. I don't know. It's hard to say. Johnson's.
Is that me or?
That's Sean.
No. When he freezes, he should.
Yeah, you're back. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Could be a long conversation.
Well, let me go with the second question that was asked on the Supreme Court. Let me see, when is it? This year. What is the reason for it? So I got somebody that is in suspension upside down. They're going to make a decision. So it's not really clear yet, but it's all about this. It's all about the secrets in the past and the information that he had. And I tried to get, well, what's the secrets? What's the secrets? And it's the angry. And when I pulled this angry card, I go, well, I like beer. Don't you like beer? Everybody likes beer. I mean, he was so strong with his beer. He's leaving. However, the future is not yet written. So we're not really sure yet. But secrets are going to come out. And they're going to, I mean, they already did come out. Yeah. So.
What can I say?
Do we have any other questions? Supreme Court's.
This one.
No, what about Mitch McConnell? Because you were freezing and making.
Oh, yeah. When will they file charges against his wife? Good luck. Never going to happen.
I think it is going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen next. If they keep blocking the DOJ, there's a bunch of congressmen who've already had that thing they send you that said you may be a target of an investigation. and they didn't list who they were because they don't, but there's a bunch
Right.
of them out there that haven't. I think that will be the next move, because what else do they have to lose? Go after them finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it actually plays out. I mean, it's years out. So the damage is also done. Clarence won't probably be in his seat when she gets prosecuted.
Mhm.
But it's already too late. The damage is done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, it's prosecutorial. I mean, it needs to be done. I think it should be. Obviously, she broke a whole bunch of laws. And there's insane amounts of conflict of interest. And the stalling tactic they're doing with the BS immunity nonsense with Trump, which was already decided during Nixon. It took them 2 weeks, by the way. They're not even going to hear it for 2 months, and then they're going to spend 2 months thinking about it. So that's obviously a thought tactic.
When I was alive when Nixon got caught and asked to leave and everything, and I always thought it was the biggest mistake. I never understood what Ford said about, it'll divide the country so terribly. They should have gotten him, because then that would have made everybody else look backwards. Now that's hindsight is 2020.
But you can't even compare Nixon to Trump. It's not even the same. It's like Trump is so much worse.
Oh, I know.
So much worse.
Yeah, but at the time it was awful. I mean, because it had not happened before. And okay, we're going to start. You want to know about questions? I'm going to get rid of that banner. She's the only person who wrote in. I did get a question about, let's see. Oh, someone sees the family resemblance, Sean, so I guess I get to tell him. That is my son. He has a different last name.
Yeah.
Because I had.
I know all Irish look the same.
No, we don't. You actually look more like your father's side anyway.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that Sean's your son or I'm your son?
No, Sean's my son, Danny. I don't have any. He's got a lot of gray hair, but he ain't got as much as you got.
It's blonde.
Yeah, you run enough Democrats in Texas, you'll get gray hair too.
That's true. That's what made my hair grow gray.
What made it turn purple?
Well, that's true, but that's just what
you.
No, wasn't me.
Okay. If you're searching for Scott's post about today's show, it's not here, because he's not here. He's in Jamaica. He's sitting on
lucky dog.
Yes, and just enjoying the crap out of life and not worrying about any of this, which might be healthier for us if we could. But anyway, so that answers that question. Let's see who else is. And I'm looking. There's a way I can look through the questions and mark them. I want to thank all the people who panicked me to death today by telling me I had the wrong time and the wrong date on my banner. And they were all right, and I had to keep going over and looking.
So they turned your hair purple?
No, I did that before. Okay. And let's see. And we talked about filing charges on Jenny. We don't see that happening.
I mean, it's not in a timely manner. It's nothing that really matters right now.
Yeah.
And Rose Blue saying good morning to y'all, and she's in Texas. And
good morning, Rose.
Rose Blue.
There's y'all, all y'alls. That's how we do it.
Yeah, all y'all.
It's the most inclusive identifier in human language, and it came from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I identify as y'all.
Okay,
y'all.
Here's something you can do, and we're going to talk about things you can do. As I just sent 3 letters to my congressional representatives to expand the damn Supreme Court. You can write them letters. You can call them. The most effective calling program I ever saw was when they were pushing the ACA, when they were going to get the health care through with Obama. And there was actually a company formed, and they would contact you and say, these are the numbers you should call to get a hold of your congressmen and your senators. And they They would hook you up with a system where if you called them, it recorded in their company too. So that you made your phone call and then you could click back, yes, I got through you. You told them what happened. Because what used to happen is you'd get a bunch of citizens together and you'd say, call and tell them what you think they ought to do. And then they just get out in front of the cameras and go, nobody in my area cares about that. I don't hear anything. As soon as they started coming in, those people showing up saying, oh, here's all the people who called you. This is their names.
The paper trail. It's very important.
Right. Because otherwise they can say whatever they want. So,
and they will say whatever they want. They will.
And here's Kim C's opinion on all this. I've always felt it was awful and painful. Trump was destined to expose the American political corruption, but that would be the silver lining. Yeah, if we get him, it'll be the silver lining.
You know, well, for one thing, I don't think he actually exposed any corruption that he didn't just bring in with him. The guardrails actually held. You know, our country didn't collapse. In a lot of ways, our country got a lot smarter. You know, yeah, he's winning the Republican primary and all that jazz this cycle. He did that last time against incredible amounts of money. I mean, if you don't think Bush couldn't raise money, you're out of your mind. The guy ran Florida, won it for his brother, for entertainment purposes. But the guardrails held. Now, if you're talking about showing corruption, the corruption I'm seeing has always been there. It's not and anyone who's paying attention always saw it. It's Citizens United. You want to know where the money's coming from? That's where the money's coming from. And in Texas, it's kind of a joke because we've been playing in that environment ever since. For the state house and state senate and the governor and lieutenant governor race in Texas, attorney general, pick a race, except judicial, and anything that's municipal.
Yes,
we've never had campaign finance limits. If you got $1 million, you can buy a state house rep in Texas.
I remember the first time I was running a campaign, and there was a consultant from another state, and she said, well, first we have to find out what the limit is for contributions. And I said, for state races, there isn't one. And she didn't believe me. We had to go out and find a computer. This was in the old days. We didn't have a lot of good reference materials. And open it up and show her. And she turned and looked at us and she said, God help you. That's all she could say. Was,
yeah,
it's pretty much true.
It's absolutely 100%. And you understand there's a whole lot of reasons why Texas is set up the way it's set up. Because you gotta understand, Texas evolved from ranchers, and ranchers are extremely, back in the day, they're very paranoid. They didn't trust anyone. They definitely didn't trust any politicians. So they wanted to be able to own and operate those guys. And the only way they could do that is if they could own and operate those guys. So that's why we've never had any campaign finance limits in Texas. And then, so now we traded cattle for energy. And if you thought cattlemen were paranoid, oil industry, they don't play. But if you look at the way Texas is designed, you got lawyers in Dallas, you got oil in Houston, and you got politicians in Austin, and San Antonio makes very good tacos. And that's how the state operates. Lawyers and bankers is money. That's Dallas, DFW. You got Houston's oil, and you got politicians in Austin. And that's the triangle of death here in Texas. And that's how it's operated. And that's how it's always operated. And what they did was they took Citizens United, came from Texas, and then, spread out around the entire country. And that's because we held elected accountable. And see what happens with it. Like a guy would be, in Texas, and then he would go into the federal system, which has campaign finance limits, right?
Yes. In theory. But they didn't, but then they got caught. And then they had to change the laws, and that's where Citizens United came from. They're like, oh, no, we like owning politicians, so let's just do that. And the gerrymandering was like pouring gasoline. Actually, Citizens United was pouring gasoline on the gerrymandering fire. Because gerrymandering got better because of computers.
and as the computers got better at mapping and doing population density counts and voter density counts, I mean, they drill down to literally the street. I have a friend who's got a congressional district that literally cuts through his backyard. His dog is in a different congressional district.
Does his dog get a ballot?
His dog is not allowed to vote yet in Texas. I'm sure they're working on it.
They're working on it. No, if you have frozen embryos, they're all people now.
Oh, I think anyone in Alabama should be declaring those on their taxes today.
Mm-hmm.
And then take that to court all day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then they took things like Austin. If you've ever seen how its districts are drawn, it's right in the front of the state house. There's like a little, and north goes this way, east, west, north, south, and it's cut the county exactly into quarters. And
we call that cracking.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is this last redistricting cycle, cracking will only get you so far. That's when you break up. Now, packing's the other thing they've started doing. So now they're putting all of the Democrats in one place. Before they would just divide up the vote. Now they're putting it all in one spot. That's the next level, is you just start even losing just races. Honestly, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but you got counties in I-35 corridor in Central Texas that have been growing at 12 to 15% a year. Nobody knows what the voters are in those districts. No one's canvassed in any real way, like with paid canvassing, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But no one's really done any of that. I think that there are, especially with the millennial vote doing what it's doing, which is exploding, and we've watched a 16% growth cycle for cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And we've watched the women vote. The women were already more registered than men before Dobbs.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, it's definitely grown. So no one's bothered to ask any of those people in any real way to vote. They're all registered. No one's asked them to vote because no one can afford to ask them to vote because no one puts any real money in Texas. And then when they do, how they spend it, and we can talk about that later because I've got a cool slide on that. Where the ROI, where the return on investment is, and like I said, we can talk about that more. But yeah, they're packing the districts now instead of cracking them, which is kind of the next best. That's the last thing they can really do.
Okay, we're going to ask the stars now. Danny,
What
do you think? And I think that, do you think Cruz and Scott will lose their elections? Or do you ask what the cards think?
I'll ask what the cards think, because
I'll ask.
Cruz
Mm-hmm.
and Scott, Florida. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Getting it down.
Scott, Florida. Scott, what's the first name? Scott. What's his name? Because it's not Tim
South
Scott.
Carolina,
That's not
don't
Florida.
they, Mom?
No, Scott. It's he's the one that had the largest got lost in the largest Medicaid fraud ever done.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
And I don't remember what his first name is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can look it up.
Senator in Florida, Scott.
Yes, Sean's gonna look it up.
Rick Scott.
Rick. Oh, Rick.
I'm gonna do two lines. I'm gonna do one as Cruz and one as Scott.
Your cards will burst into flames.
No. Oh, trust me, Danny's house would have been down by now. Where's Mr. Pumpkinhead? Speaking of
he's in the box.
He's in the box, huh?
He's in the box.
I was trying to explain Mr. Pumpkinhead to Sean.
I can pull him out if you want. If you.
Yeah, Sean will probably get a laugh out of seeing him. But
All right.
answer our question first.
I'll pull him out.
This is such a cleverly, carefully organized program. I just can't believe it. They'll be all so glad when Scott comes back. But... Well, Cruz is still up in the air. But he's trapped by his own image. He's trapped by the image that he has.
Oh yeah, no, he's
Who knows? God.
Yeah, I got the heavy burden. He's carrying a load, different load that Trump carries, because Trump carries it in his pants. Oops, sorry.
for entertainment purposes.
Something new coming, but he's still standing. He's going to get beat up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't seem to affect him. He's still standing. Scott, Rick Scott, I think it's the end for him.
Yeah,
I
that's what I
don't-
got.
Yeah.
I got that he had all the power and he had like Big Daddy type time.
Yeah.
Now he's on the outs.
Yeah.
That's the Five of Pentacles reversed. He's on the outs. He can't figure out how to solve the problem. And he's going to get to go retreat, take a vacation, Four of Swords.
Oh, cool. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, it was interesting. I got a lot of hard work. I got the Four of Wands, which is a celebration. When I flipped it over, I went, but that's for us, for more democratic minded. And then I got the completion when I pulled some clarifications on the completion card. I got the King of Cups. I'm like, oh yeah, he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, people have figured out. I'm living on a state that's sinking and has no oh, here comes Mr. Pumpkinhead.
Here comes Mr. Pumpkinhead. Okay, so for those who don't know, a little while ago, I just got so sick and tired. Well, a long while ago, I got sick and tired of listening to who I refer to as Mr. Pumpkinhead. It's the Orange Menace. So I put him in a box and I mailed him to Fulton County. However, Fulton County at that time didn't want him just yet, so she mailed him back to me. So I put him in this box, and here he is. And see, he's been getting kind of beat up because, how you doing? Oh no,
Mr. Bill.
And see, he's got all these documents attached to his back, so he's been eating documents. Do you want to say anything? I'd love to say something. Okay, yeah, we're not going to listen. And then here's my brother, who is not a MAGA Republican. He's just a hillbilly Republican. That's him. But he's not.
It's a Trump troll.
He's not MAGA.
No, he's not.
He walks, talks, not MAGA.
And for those of you who really don't know all the tarot decks, there's a deck. It's a Halloween deck, and it has a Mr. Pumpkinhead, and he looks suspiciously like a person that used to be president. So,
yeah. Wonder if I can find it real quick. Probably not real quick. No, not real quick.
that's not one of the decks I own, but I know it.
Deck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Halloween decks because I read Halloween parties, but
Yeah. So here's what I want to ask Sean.
Sure.
So one of the things that, being in the energy field, not oil, but when we go do something like call our representative, write our representative, to me, that, it goes into the ether and we get a form letter back that says, yeah, or whatever. And I go, did it really make a difference? I think the act of doing it, setting that energy out, does make a difference. But what else can we do that is there something more that we can be doing to affect change the way that we personally want to see it, or in the other side too, in the best way? Like get out and vote.
I mean, voting is obviously the number one thing. But if you're trying to, what I would say, increase your footprint as a citizen, and you want to make a bigger difference, and I always tell people, look up your precinct where you live. This is for the States, by the way. I know we have international people who watch this, and that's cool too. But
Yeah,
I'm
Ian.
sure it applies anywhere. But in the States, find out what precinct you live in. Look at what races overlap your precinct. Congressional, well, start at the beginning. Judicial, sheriff, if that's a thing in your precinct, or whatever they call that version of your precinct. And then you go, all through the judicials. Then you get to the state level, so state house, state senate, lieutenant governor, governor. We have the railroad commissioner in Texas is the second most powerful seat after the lieutenant governor in Texas. Remember, I
Wow.
told you all the ranchers are paranoid. Our governor in this state, and I will not call him by my favorite name. It's darn entertaining. Our governor in Texas is actually an incredibly weak position. Lieutenant governor in our state's infinitely more powerful than our governor. And right under him is railroad commissioner, because a railroad commissioner in Texas has nothing to do with railroads beyond jurisdiction. It actually has everything to do with the pipelines and oil and anything that involves energy, including wind turbines. It has jurisdiction 200, I believe it's 200 yards. I'm sure someone on the feed will correct me if I'm wrong. 200 yards in any direction from any railroad in Texas. Go Google railroads in Texas. 200 yards. That's 2 football fields in either direction from that railroad. Okay, that's their jurisdiction.
Wow.
Incredibly powerful.
Mhm.
And nobody knows what it does. And no one bothers to even, it's railroad commissioner. What? No, it should have a completely different name. Energy, infrastructure, and oil management manager is really what it should be. And boy, I tell you, if you change the name to that or anything like that, people would pay more attention. They're like, what? Energy, oil? That's totally different from railroad, man. As far as concerned, it's 4 spots on the monopoly board. So that's our second most powerful position. So look at those seats, but then look at all the overlapping races that sit in your precinct, and then look up those guys. Judicials also, although you won't find much on them because they just generally can't run for anything. I mean, they can't say what their policies are because
That's the
because they're
bar
a judge.
association rules are such that they can't say what they do about a case before they hear the case,
Right.
because they're supposed to do it based on the facts. So it makes them very difficult when they first run. You have to sit on them and teach them what to say and not say, which basically is don't say anything. And then people
can't
think,
say
oh
anything.
God, they sound wishy-washy. Well,
That's kind of the whole point.
mhm.
But State House for sure. Look those guys up, and you can go to Ballotpedia and look up where their money comes from, and that'll tell you a lot about how they're going to vote. Because, like I said, our State House reps they have endless amounts of money can flow into their campaigns from anywhere and anyone. So that's definitely part of it. So I would definitely look at that, and then I would find candidates that you like, and then I would reach out to them and say, hey, I'll knock on the doors in my precinct. Because if you really want to expand your footprint, that's how you do it. Because what's the most powerful thing you can say on a front porch, Mom?
The first person that impresses a voter is if the candidate shows up on their porch. The second person that impresses a voter it will actually, that voter will tell 10 other people they met them, is a neighbor who cares enough to take time out of their day to show up on your doorstep and say, I like this guy.
Because you all go to the same grocery store, you guys have kids in the same schools, you can speak to the things that matter to that person at their front door. And
Sean knows all about this. This is what his company basically does. But when you'd find out, people would say, oh, thus and so was in the neighborhood. And, we'd hear it from other people. I hear this person was in my neighborhood, or, and it really makes a difference. The hands-on approach. And the other one is, I know people don't like to do it, but I won't do it anymore because I have attitude. And when I get on the phone and someone crosses me, my governor gets off my brain. And, and they get the reader, Nancy Jean, not the person calling to support your candidacy. But if you can do that with an even temper, and actually, I called into Massachusetts to help Elizabeth Warren, and it was fascinating because obviously the people, I've been in the South so long that I have it. I have a bit of a Southern accent, and the people would say, "You're not from Massachusetts," and I'd go, "No." And I got from some of the people in Massachusetts, "Why are people calling us from Texas? Why can't Elizabeth Warren find people?" And I was supposedly calling Democrats. And
that sounds like Democrats.
Well, you've been in Massachusetts, Sean. You know what they're like. But,
yeah, you're talking to one of the few Texans who've actually caucused in 60 different townships. So yeah, that was fun.
Yes, and you found out that the Republicans were like Democrats here, right?
Oh yeah, well, so actually that was Seattle. So it was 2012, and I was watching commercials, political commercials, because it's not like there's no influence that's going to happen on me. I like the mechanics and the language and the tactics they're using. It's kind of like when you're watching a football game, you don't care what who the two teams are, but it's the types of plays they're using. It's more interesting. So as I'm watching these Republicans talk about universal health care, free college in-state tuition, shelter for the homeless, and I'm a Republican, I'm running for this and this and this and this, and I realized that the Republicans in Seattle are the Democrats in Texas. It's fact. I saw that also in Massachusetts. And all politics is local. I mean, I was working in Florida when DeSantis ran, and everyone's like, "Oh, DeSantis won Florida by 19 points. How did he do it? He must be a genius." Or he outspent the Democrats 20-1. You give me a 20-1 advantage, $20 to $1 advantage, I will destroy my opponent. His purchase of Hispanic radio equaled the entire budget for Democratic media buy. Just his purchase of Spanish speaking radio. Incredible amounts of money flew because honestly, DeSantis was the Republicans' solution to Trump.
Yeah.
This was 4 years ago. They've been trying to get rid of Trump for 4 years. They were going to prop DeSantis up so high, he destroyed the Democrats by 19.5 points in Florida. And he was going to use that to go in and really just go after Trump. Problem is, DeSantis is a greasy...
yeah, we all saw him. We saw
for
him.
entertainment purposes, he's terrible. And he's a weasel. And once he got out of Florida, people realized that. And let me tell you, when they say all politics is local, be happy all the local politics stays in Florida. I've never been in a conference call where the Communist Party was brought up every 15 minutes, because the Democratic Cubans are afraid of communism. That's fact. And given their background, their history, that makes perfect sense. But also, I could have sworn this was 1984 and not, 2020. Mm-hmm. But here I was on a conference call where everyone's like, well, we can't use that language. And we're talking about, language and text in Spanish, right? And they're like, oh, we can't use that because that's the language that the communists use to talk about healthcare, to talk about education, to talk about it. We can't use those words because all of the older Cubans will go, oh, that's communism, because of just the language, the words we used. So all politics is local and just about as crazy as anywhere else. It's just all different, So and I had friends who worked in Iowa, and they were talking about the Green New Deal was a big deal in Iowa for Democrats because they want to turn corn into fuel. Well, it costs more to turn turning corn into fuel has a bigger carbon footprint than literally pulling oil out of the ground. So, I mean, what are we talking about? So, you got a bunch of New Englanders who know that, and they're like, why does that make any sense? I'm like, because you're not running in Iowa. That's why it doesn't make sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
All politics is local. So as a consultant and a field operative and a person that the work that I do for a living, I have to be able to walk into a state and understand that when you're looking, if politics is light, the people are a prism. And how that prism is built will determine how that light is split up into all of its various different issues. So I have to be able to know that and walk into that. And that's part of why we get paid to do the work we do, because we have to be able to do that. And that's not something that's taught in school. There's no classes. Well, there might be classes on it these days. But until you're actually in the trenches, and what we call it the mud. All my whole team at the Broadway group, we all come from what we call the mud. We're all field. Every one of us has knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors personally. And the only way you can do that is if you literally do this work for a quarter century, which is where I'm at. I'm at 26 years. Most people I work with have been doing it for 10. Like when we work with other people. My team, there's 4 of us. If you add up all of our experience, we're over 80 years combined. And we're also one of the few firms that are minority majority owned. So everyone I work with does not look like me, which is fine with me.
So this Broadway group, is that throughout all the states?
Yeah, we've worked in. I don't say we've worked in every state, because we mostly do knocking on doors, and we do general consulting too. But how the metric we use is what's the distance between door A and door B. So like Montana would have a really, really bad density for us. but it's like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Madison, Dallas, Austin, Houston, and the surrounding counties. Places, any place with density, Atlanta. We were in 7 counties in Florida because, the density was right. So knocking on doors makes sense. But if you can't knock on 15 to 20 doors an hour as a canvasser and have your periodical 1 in 12 will actually open up and have a conversation with a candidate, with a voter, and it can be 1 in 12 is bad. We normally pop in around 1 in 3, 1 in 4, but so you're having like 3 conversations every hour is about what we look for. But what's interesting, we were talking about phones earlier. This thing ruined phones. Ruined them. Like Nancy and I were working in campaigns back in 2006 when smartphones first started, and we saw and listen, we do know what we're doing. Our targeting and our phones were clean. The numbers were very clean. But as the smartphone was born, and you were able to control who could call you, with blocks and everything, tag numbers. I don't never accept a phone call from that number ever again. We watched our penetration rate. That means how many phone calls we made and how many people answered them. We would get almost 20%. And then it went to 12. And then it went to 6. And then by 2008, it was 2.5%, 3%. We were killing it if you were getting 3%. That means 3 out of every 100 calls actually you talk to somebody and then they hung up on you. But it still counts as a live call.
Yeah.
So now if you're breaking 1%, you're killing it. That's why when you look at a lot of these national polls, this goes for anybody watching, always look at the sample size. If you see a national poll and it's because they're doing phone calls. So they're going to get 785 responses where they actually go through the entire poll. And that's the sample for the entire country.
So
85 people decide what that poll says for the entire country.
That aren't smart enough to know how to block calls.
Right. Who are they calling? Who is the 18-year-old they're talking to? There's one. And he answers every poll.
The other part that happened that Sean left out was after cell phones started, and remember when you had to pay for every minute you talked, or okay, people sued saying I didn't ask for this phone call. They were coming at me for something, and there was actually a fine. You could get fined $5,000 a call.
Yeah,
for calling
bankrupted whole company.
And so then it became, what's a landline? What's a cell? Do you remember when we met John Dean, Sean? And
Yeah.
he's an old school politician. Obviously goes back to the Nixon things, but he was fascinated. He spent a half an hour talking to Sean and I about phones because he'd never even heard that phones weren't the way to poll anymore. I mean, you know, and he said, how do I find out about this? And you talked to him again later on a phone call about it. But, you know, things change constantly. But the one thing that doesn't change is if the candidate shows up on your doorstep, or a good representative of the candidate shows up on your doorstep, or a neighbor. After that, you can use paid people going door to door because they're trained in what to say and what to know and what to do. And that can be very helpful, which is Sean's thing. I'm going to put up your little.
Okay, yeah, this is actually really pertinent.
I have one question that came through. That's a Danny question. What is the hope of Citizens United ever being overturned? That's just ask the cards if you can.
Oh, you can ask the cards.
Yeah.
Let Danny's has some very loud cards.
Okay.
Well, maybe I should use the Halloween deck on that because I'm kind of with Sean on this that it's not going to happen.
I mean, yeah, it's like asking fish to stop swim. I mean, they got real used to that water and they kind of needed to live. I mean, these campaigns, you're going to ask every congressman to cut off both legs. I mean, that's literally what you're asking them to do. And they're going to have a ton of money hitting them, telling them, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you change that?
Yeah.
Stop electing human beings. I mean, it's in their nature. If you hold a scorpion, you can't be angry at the scorpion if he gets stung. It's in that scorpion's nature to sting. Stop holding scorpions.
Yeah,
Doesn't look good, huh?
It doesn't look good, but so I get a lot of using the Halloween deck here.
Mm-hmm.
I do get the Three of Pentacles, which could mean some influential money from other sources, like for entertainment purposes only, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I get them working really hard, giving and receiving. Yeah, it's not the best way to move things. I got the heartbreak of it's their agenda. But they're sick. I don't see them leaving, but I don't necessarily see them sticking around either in the long term. I think something's going to change with them, but
well, actually, you're right. Okay, and we talked about this before we actually started the show a little bit. The way we actually can solve this problem is without solving it. Citizens United is not going anywhere. It's a crap ruling when they ruled. But what you got to do is you got to stop punishing progressive and liberal candidates and campaigns for taking PAC money. That purity test is garbage. All you're doing is giving the Republicans more help for entertainment purposes. So honestly, do what Wisconsin did. They voted in Supreme Court justices in Wisconsin so that they could finally give fair maps.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 20-year logjam of progressive Democratic candidates that are about to flood into Wisconsin. It'll be 30 seats are going to change between the state house and the state senate. 30 seats. It's going to be incredible, and it's because they made fair maps. And I was saying this earlier. Oh, you can have all the Citizens United you want. You give me a fair playing field where ideas matter, then you got this. You're not going to win every single one, but the Democrats were 54% of the vote in Wisconsin, and they were winning 1/3 of the state house seats.
Yeah, I mean, that's
not Citizens United. That's gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And
so you got to break that Supreme Court level at the state level so that when they file the lawsuits against those maps, they actually go somewhere that matter. Yeah. That's how you beat. That's how you beat Citizens United. You can't kill it. You can beat it, though. That's how you beat it.
Okay.
I'm going to have you read with me all the time because that was really good. And you make me look, a little better. Awesome. Thank you. Because I knew they were moving. I just didn't know.
Well, Wisconsin's a great example. My God. That was brilliant. And let me tell you, they worked on that for 13 years of just getting pounded into the ground by Republicans who were drawing maps that were complete garbage for entertainment purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Danny, I promised Danny I wouldn't make him work more than an hour. Wow. Apparently, he shrivels up and blows away in a puff of smoke.
I do.
You can stay if you want to stay, or you can bow out. We're not getting lots of Danny and me questions. We're getting questions that I'm going to give to Sean. And the next hour is going to be how to figure out how to best invest your time. Levels of government for those of you who did not get a civics course. So you can. I can't tell you when I ran a city council candidate and she'd knock on some person's door and they'd go, "What do you think of same-sex marriage?" Well, I can't help you. I mean, because I can fix your street. I can make sure your sewers are working right. You got enough water. But same-sex marriage is a little outside the realm of.
Yeah, I worked a commissioner race in Travis County, and we had a debate about immigration. Commissioners basically make sure that tires don't end up in Lake Travis.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you talking about? There's not even a border on Travis County. It's in the middle of the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back against the paranoid, creation of Texas politics. They put the capital in the center of the state because they figured they were going to. Remember, Texas used to be its own country. The United States is one of the it's about the only country in the world that would put their capital on the coast. Have you ever noticed that? Most countries have their capital in the middle of their country. Do you know why? Because they're likely to be invaded by their friends or their neighbors. So so nobody puts their capital on the coast. U.S. does. Because we're like, we dare you. And then we've actually had our capital taken by the British and the Canadians. So but not in a long time.
Not in a long time.
A Navy.
I do have a question for you, Danny, but it's not in the list. It's from Sheila. She wants to know why the hell Dems aren't voting in your primary, which is going on right now. And the Super Tuesday primary is this Tuesday. So,
Danny, which state do you live in?
California.
Oh,
they're not voting. The
contested primaries. I guess your Senate race is a contested one. That's kind of interesting, but that's it.
Yeah,
contested primaries. The Democrats are not giving birth to a third party, whereas the Republicans are.
Yeah.
The MAGA is going to be its own third party, and any woman who's ever had children will tell you, giving birth is very painful and it's very messy. So that's what we're watching in the Republican Party. That's why, especially if it's an open primary. And I see this a lot in Texas. The reason that if you're in Collin County, you're not voting in the Democratic primary is because usually there's only one candidate running for that seat. It's very rarely is there a contested primary. Whereas the Republicans have got like 9 choices, and the Democrats will vote in the Republican primary because they're choosing the least crazy one. Because 9 times out of 10, the March primary in Texas is the general election.
Well, right now we're having a lot of Republicans run because they screwed Greg Abbott out of his school voucher choice. So any Republican who voted, and since it didn't pass, it meant a lot of Republicans voted to not have that happen. And all of a sudden, Greg Abbott came in and said, I'm running people against you. And you can see them. They got money poured all over the TV. Sometimes watching the ads can tell you who not to vote for. If I were a Republican and I saw anybody that had those certain people attached to him, I'd say, no, I'm not voting there. And it's stupid for Greg Abbott to do that, because when those Republicans came back to their home districts, they had parades for them. They had parties. They said, thank you for saving our public schools from the insanity in Austin. And that's what pissed Greg Abbott off, is how well those people got received. Not to make
Friday Night Lights. Everyone makes fun of football, but that's literally what saved education in rural Texas is football.
Mm-hmm.
It did. That's what they do on Friday nights, and it's a big deal. And it's almost like a fair every week. And it's the one thing that the whole community does. They also do basketball and soccer and everything, but believe me, it's football. And baseball is pretty big. But it's Friday Night Lights saved education in Texas, flat out.
Mm-hmm. And probably a lot of other states. Basketball in Illinois is a huge.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Everybody has their thing.
It's
anyway,
there's nothing else out there, guys. I cannot stress to you what's in West Texas. Nothing.
And the old cotton land, the old land that they used to raise cotton on, they turned into vineyards. So now raising wine in Texas is a huge thing. And all of a sudden, the state started passing reasonable laws. If you ran a wine bar, you could stay open after 11, and different things that made it a more lucrative business because the land was involved. There's and I'm sure other states have their own little myths and legends, but
and it's because we don't have any campaign finance limits. Do you know how much money's in wine?
I do. I used to work in a wine bar.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Also, fun fact: if you run campaigns in cities in Texas, you're doing it in wine bars.
I'm going to cut Danny off. I'm going to turn him off.
Great meeting you, Sean. Great conversation.
You,
I'm going to finish watching this later on the big TV. So
I'm removing you, Danny. Goodbye.
Bye, Danny.
That's how fast you can remove Danny when you want to.
Wow, that was pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for the rest of you, for the rest of this time, we did a lot of it, but we're gonna go into some of the stuff. Sean brought some real interesting things to the fore, but I have this little graphic, levels of government, so that people know. And this group's a very liberal group, so they inverted the triangle, but it's the voters on top. And then there's the federal government, and then there's the state government, and then there's counties, townships, and cities. And each of your states is made up of some mix of this. Yeah. And so I think for you to, so you say, okay, how the hell do I know where I am? Well, then Sean and I are going to talk about a couple of different resources for you as individuals to be able to use. The one Sean's already spoken about, Ballotpedia. I love Ballotpedia. I copied some stuff off of them this morning, so I'd have it in case it came up. Since this is Super Tuesday, they had a complete compilation. You can't read it, but it's a complete compilation of
between them and the
Cook report.
The Cook report, and you can really dig down and figure out what's going on in your neck of the woods.
And they're like a page each, and they tell you about stuff going on in races that most people didn't even know. If you remember in the last round of school board races, school boards are usually run in the spring because they're supposed to be nonpartisan. But so if a political race shows up in November, it means there's going to be partisans, R&Ds, or whomever else is going to be on that ballot. If it's a school board, it's probably going to be in the spring, the same time as a lot of city councils, which are also not partisan. in lots of cases. So that's how you can tell. If you're hearing about a race running in May or June, that's usually going to be a nonpartisan race. November is going to be partisan. But the when I used to call them the Taliban in minivans were running around trying to take over all the school boards and tell us what books our kids could see and basically reverse education completely. You heard all about them. You heard all about this moms for whatever they called themselves something else that sounded like the total opposite of what they were doing.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. And so, but at the end of the day, I never read a compilation. I knew that the one woman that was their biggest voice got her school board seat in Florida. And I think I heard about one in Virginia or Maryland. But yes, I'm going to put this up, but it's that's another word for those women. Anyway, that's all you heard about was these clowns running around doing their thing. And what happened was Ballotpedia put together, and you can go find it. You can look it up, school board races. There was another group that quietly was created that was people who said, we want to keep our school boards local. We don't want, a lot of outside influence on them. They won 85% of the seats they supported. These guys won 2 races, and they were in like 200 and some. So I'm just saying, you don't hear what's happening. You go to someplace like Ballotpedia and you can see it, and they analyzed where the races ran and who ran them and how they were done. And they gave you information so you could go if you wanted to find out is that group somewhere in my area so I could support it. It's all in there. So that's kind of Ballotpedia, and then the other one's Open Secrets, but Open Secrets is more money oriented.
And following the money is never a bad idea.
No, and if you want to see who are these people, when someone says this candidate was supported by, like right now we have someone who's really taken off after somebody who's running, and they claim that the guy who's putting the money behind them is the guy who supported Beto, the billionaire who supported Beto. And I don't remember I remember there being a lot of grassroots, people supporting him. But the deal is you can now go open up that guy's campaign report, and you can see how much money is he getting from that guy. Because it is an in-state race in Texas, it could be everything, but I don't think it is, because Dems we don't usually get that much from them. Okay, you want to do your ROI?
Sure.
Okay.
So a lot of the questions we get from campaigns is like, what do we spend our money on, and what's the best bang for buck, right? And so what we do in my business, obviously, is we have to have a metric, and we figure out how much are you spending for each door where we have paid trained canvassers to knock on. These guys know the issues, they know what questions to ask. They're trained. We do a lot of role playing and things of that nature. So, and this is from the Brookings Institute. We do a lot of really, really good statistics. They looked at 2,000 races and came up with the number one best period. The best way to spend your money is knocking on doors. It's literally 3 times better than nonpartisan direct mail as far as cost goes. It's literally for every 273 pieces of nonpartisan mail. This is just stuff that says we should help our libraries, not even a candidate's involved, just an issue. For every 273 pieces of mail, you get 1 vote. That's a lot. It's a lot of money to spend per vote. Now, compare that to knocking on doors and talking to people. For every $1, for every dollar you spend, for every $16 you spend, you're getting one vote. That
Mhm.
sounds, oh my God, it's a lot of money. It's nothing compared to how much money is wasted on mail. Billions of dollars with a B. Every cycle wasted on mail. If you look on this thing, you see that there eventually, after nonpartisan mail, it says no significant effect, no significant effect, no significant effect, no significant effect. That's direct mail from the candidate, zero effect. Almost half their budget is spent on postage. Put a stamp on something. Tell me how much that costs. Imagine doing that 100,000 times. That's how much they're spending for just one piece of mail, and they'll drop at least 5. All right, emails, we all get them instantly blocked. It's where people don't realize email's not for communication anymore. Email is a key. It is an identifier. It's not a way to communicate. You register with Facebook using your email. So we can look at email and go, okay, what do they use this email for? Who are they? Are they on Twitter? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? What is this email attached to? That's of more value to us than sending out an e-blast. Just leaving campaign material on doors without actually knocking or talking, useless. It ends up on the ground in a recycling bin. It's the same as mail. Robocalls, I talked about that earlier. This thing destroyed robocalls, destroyed them. Now, you will notice that there are a couple different phone calls that do work. So calls that are made by a live person are 1 in 125 calls will actually get you a voter. Phone calls made by volunteers, 1 in 35. Not bad. Honestly, it's the next best thing after knocking on doors. But you got to understand, that's if they do the volunteer phone calls smart, because they can go right to no significant effect so quick, just by making a couple very, very small mistakes. So honestly, at the end of the day, when people ask, like, how do I make a difference? Own your precinct. Own it. Talk to the campaigns. Say, give me a door hanger. Don't give me material I got to stick in a door. Ask them for an actual door hanger. That little cutout hook on a door hanger increases the efficiency of your field program by 15%. It costs less than a penny to do that for a piece of material. Campaigns just don't do that. It blows my mind. But you want to ask for an actual door hanger and say, I've got this many doors. If you're a Democrat, you're going to use Van. Van will tell me doors you have in your precinct that are worth knocking on. So you say, I want that much material plus 20%. And that way you're guaranteed to get the right amount. Mm-hmm. So then you go and knock on those doors. And you got to do that at least 3 or 4 times. And when you find out when there's a door and somebody's moved, identify them as moved. You just saved that campaign and any other campaign that's hooked into Van hundreds of dollars. Mm-hmm. Not only are you, it's almost like you donated to all those campaigns without actually donating. You removed that house, like the people moved, the house burned down, whatever. That's no longer a registered voter. So what you do is you can literally donate to campaigns by helping clean their data. You can donate thousands of dollars to their campaign by helping them clean that data, by knocking on that door, finding out they've moved, finding out the data is wrong in Van. That happens. So that's a huge way you can help. And you can help a whole bunch of all those judicials and like the second and third and fourth page of your ballot that you're like, I don't even know these people. For one thing, you'll learn who they are because you're knocking on doors and you'll actually figure it out. Mm-hmm. And you'll just become more engaged and you'll own your precinct. So we worked in Obama's campaign. Obama knew he had won by the time early voting was done. We counted every vote on every street. And the only way to do that is to knock on doors. Now, we did that mostly with volunteers. And when you have a candidate like Obama, that's a thing. Like, they just generated volunteers. Like, man, we had 6,000 volunteers in Obama, Dallas. The largest field program in the history of the county, of Dallas County. was in 07, 08. Bigger than Beto, bigger than anybody's, period. Just by the numbers. And I mean, to give you an idea, the Democratic primary prior to the 08 primary, March primary in Dallas County, back to 1977, of active voters that were still around, was 45,000 total voters out of 1.2 million. After the 08 primary, 380,000 people had voted. That's the power of canvassing. All we had was canvassing. We didn't have money for anything else. We had canvassing, and if you wanted a yard sign, we probably had a hookup. But that's it. That's all we had. And we did it. And that's how you changed. We changed the world. The ACA was amazing. It saved lots of lives. And then COVID happened. The ACA saved millions of lives because of COVID. I mean, the infrastructure, the ability for these hospitals to operate digitally and without hard copy. Had they had to wait to get the heart information from all these different places because people were getting sick and going to wherever was closest, well, all that was digital because of the ACA. Saved millions of lives. People got the right prescriptions. Lots of people died during COVID. Millions of more would have died without the ACA. And that was the work we did. We saved lives. It's pretty wild, but it's absolutely a fact. And so if you want to do something, you want to make a real change, take control of your precinct. Find out who your precinct chair is. Honestly, they're probably in their 60s, 70s, or 80s.
Hey,
they're looking for help. Their knees don't work anymore. And these are facts. So they can't knock on the doors necessarily. Especially when, in Texas, it's like 112 degrees for about 200 days a year. No way you're going to get somebody out there that's got health issues and precinct chairs are important. They are the most important, thankless job on the planet in politics because they do get elected, but nobody knows their precinct chair. You should know your precinct chair. And they would be happy.
The importance of precinct chairs is they too take the time to go out and meet these people that are running for office.
Yes,
and they can have a real feel for them. Now, if you get a jerk who's a precinct chair, then you may not want to follow what their impressions are. But if they have, if they're a reasonably decent person, then they can be a great resource for you if you like a person resource. One of the things I was going to talk about for Ballotpedia, about the things you're talking about, finding information. Somebody wanted to know what about texting to reach people. Does that work
it's the
at
same
all?
as phones.
Okay.
They're annoying. Beto texted me about every 20 minutes. It's overkill. If you're on any texting server, you're getting texts probably 12, 13 a day. And there's paragraphs. There's no one's reading those. I'm not. I will, but it's work for me.
Yeah.
I don't ever think of me as the normal. So, but I do have lots of friends that don't do what I do. And I always talk to them. I'm like, do you actually read those? He's like, the second I get that text, I block it.
Well, the other thing
that means the people that are going to read those texts that care enough about your campaign, you've already got. So what are you doing? What's the ROI? None.
Television ads. That's why God made fast forwarding.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you right now. The most expensive state house district in Texas to run is 108. It's like the bottom half of it's downtown Dallas and the upper half of it's uptown Dallas. All high density residential. All you can't knock on much. And the part you can knock on are the 12 most conservative voting precincts in Texas, the Park Cities. So, yeah, the only thing you can do is television for 108. And mail, which we already talked about how valuable mail is. And honestly, it's like I mute commercials because it's just noise to me. It drives me insane. That's why, but like I said, I'm not normal. I understand what they're doing and I get it. And trust me, I'm by far one of the most, by listening to this YouTube, you're probably by accidentally fallen into the top 5% of most informed voters.
Mhm.
So you can imagine what people like we are that have been doing it for 25 years.
Mhm.
So the bar is pretty low, and TV does work. I have seen races where they had a budget, they outraised everyone with Republican money. They ran in a Democratic primary. They were a Republican. Their voter history said they voted in Republican primaries, which I know doesn't necessarily mean they're a Republican, because if you live in an area with no contested Democratic races, but you got to vote for the least crazy Republican, yeah, vote in a Republican primary. I do not hold that against you. But all she did was get on television and say, I hate Trump. That's it. That was her entire message, her entire platform, and everything. And she schooled everyone, because there's only so much door knocking you can do if you don't have any money. And if you know that your opponents don't have any money and they can't get the volunteer base out, also volunteer canvassing is hard, because there's a lack of training and a lack of consistent messaging, and there's a billion reasons why it can be difficult. Still valuable, but paid canvassing is by far infinitely more effective. My team helped flip the Virginia legislature last November, and took it back from the Republicans, because we knocked on 45,000 doors in 4 weeks. You can't do that with volunteers unless you're in Obama's campaign in 2007, 2008. So unless you can convince Obama to run again or get a time machine, you'll never see that. And that's not to say there isn't another candidate that's coming down the pipe that might have that kind of enthusiastic upswell. But it was a perfect storm. You had to have the economic collapse of 2007 that led into the 2008 cycle. I mean, it was just a perfect storm. I think we're also in another perfect storm with Dobbs and IVF and all that stuff. I think I've been in rooms with Republicans after that leak from the Supreme Court happened, and they were freaked out because they've been raising money from, through the pro-life movement for 50 years. They were fully addicted to that. And now what are we looking at? Oh, that's what's happening to the Republican fundraising, because because mission accomplished. Mm-hmm. They got rid of Roe. They've been raising money against Roe for 50 years. They were the dog that caught the car. Well, other Republicans saw that and they knew what the problem was. I stood in a room and they told it to my face. Didn't know who I was. Didn't tell them either. But they were so upset. And they should be, because, yeah, their lunch is about to get eaten this cycle. But yeah, so television does definitely have a place. It does work. Now, mm-hmm. I would definitely, if you're trying to you run a Democratic primary, which in a lot of places because of gerrymandering, your Republican Democratic primary is the general election because of the way the maps are cut. That's why gerrymandering is way more damaging than Citizens United, in my opinion. So TV works. It does. I've seen it firsthand. What's really interesting is that the other campaigns in the cycle can't, unless they're watching television and seeing those commercials, you still don't have any idea until you look at their campaign finance report how much they've spent. And fun fact about Texas races is there's a 7-day before the election report and a 7-day after the election day report. So when is the check cut? The day right after the election. So they don't have to report in the 7 days before, and they don't have to report it and it comes in after the election. It's after the election, who cares? Done. So you don't know what they're doing until they're doing it. It's like running against a ghost. It's very interesting. And now when I've got that feeling that I'm running against a ghost, I know they're doing television. So TV works. It's just insanely expensive. Like you're going to spend $1 million on a commissioner race.
Well, people that are watching this probably aren't going to run.
Yeah.
Well, they may.
No, that's what I'm saying. Take control of your precinct. That's what you want to do. Because hello, my name is Sean, and I am your neighbor, is the most powerful phrase outside actually being a candidate.
And be their neighbor, don't make it up. because they'll figure it out. And to give you guys a story about how you can't affect people, my Sean's younger sister, she's 2 years younger than he is. When we were working with Obama, she had a friend of hers, a classmate, call her named Aisha. And Aisha said, "How do you get involved?" And Casey said, "Go find the local office for a candidate you like that's running." And there wasn't Ballotpedia or a lot of these other places to investigate candidates. So Aisha went down. She lived in Charlotte, I think, North Carolina. She went down and she got involved in the Obama stuff. And she worked with Obama. And then she did what a lot of people don't do after the race. And this is what cost Obama from being able to build out his full agenda. Well, we won and they went home. Aisha did not go home. Aisha stayed. And Aisha ended up running her county party for a while. And then she got involved in other ways. Anyway, we got the notice the other day. She's running for her state house race in the Carolinas. So I'm just telling you, you can go. And Aisha was like, "I don't know anything about this. How do you get involved with this?" And da-da-da-da-da. Go find out and try it out. And this is Rose Blue. Rose Blue lives in Texas. She's had plumbing problems. Rose, go to Ballotpedia. And all that's in the description of this show. When it goes off air, you'll be able to find Ballotpedia, the link for cooks, for Cook, and the link for Open Secrets. Go there, and it's got a "what do you want to know?" And you can tell them down to the county you're in. You can tell them down to the city you're in. And that's for anywhere in the country. You can find that. Can't help you, Ian. I don't think Ballotpedia is in Scotland. But the good thing about Ballotpedia is they keep track of every race that's being run, and they send every candidate a questionnaire. And you can see how they answer the questions. What's more important to me, the fastest.
And they also pull from other questionnaires. So, like the League of Women Voters has a great.
Yes.
You should add them to the source. League of Women Voters. If you're looking for a voter guide, nonpartisan, it's hard to do better.
Yes.
They do such a thorough job. Now they don't go all the way down the ballot always, and they don't do judicials on, but state house and up. Oh yeah, They are on like .com.
And they're a brilliant group to work with. They were formed right after women. Well, they're actually the people who got women the vote. They became the League of Women Voters. And you don't have to be a woman to go there. I mean, it's the League of Women Voters, but it's.
I use it.
Yeah. And there's so many places to look at, because trust me, I look at it and I kind of know about 50% now because I'm not in it every day. But you can start there and start working out and figuring out where you want to go next. And it's hard. Why don't people sue states for banning books, for books that hurt their feelings, or on the opposite side of the fence? Why do bigots get their cake and to eat it too? Look, because the laws are kind of screwed up, and they don't in states where the government doesn't support them. But
yeah, apathy is the cancer of our society. That's really, and I mean, and let's be clear, you got to look at the voter blocks, right? The millennial generation is a very large voting bloc. It's the largest now in our country. And after that's the boomers. I'm an X-gen. We've always been kind of small. But when it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and they squeak very loud. And they like, the books are in the library. You're not going into the library making sure the books are in the library. They win, the books are in the library, we're making sure they're out of the library. There's an active role there. Now we got people making sure the books are in the library. But you didn't have to do that until they were taken out of the library. And why would you take books out of the library in the first place? I mean, so you got to understand that there's no there until there's something there. And there was no reason for people to be angry because the books were being taken out of the library until they were actually taken out of the library. So, you kind of, it's a horse and the cart issue there. So now, like we talked about earlier, you saw all of these people just getting thrown out of these Board of Education seats that were nut jobs because it took a cycle. Everyone had to see, oh, they are absolutely crazy, and boom, you know. So we're seeing and that's how politics is. The pendulum swings, right? We got Obama, so then it swung the other way, equally to the other direction. That's how you get Trump, you know.
We got Trump because the Russians were persistent.
And it swings back, and that's how we got Biden, because everyone saw how bad Trump was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's a pendulum that swings back and forth, and we see it. That's why it's obvious. You get Reagan, then you got his Vice President Bush, but only for 4 years, and then you got Clinton for 8, and then it swung back to Bush, his son, for 8 years. And boy, that was fun. My entire generation decided to go fight a war for 16 years. That was crazy. And then it swung back so hard, we got Obama. Now, do you know how bad it has to be for Obama to get elected? I'm sorry. There's very few scenarios that would allow that progressive.
That large would change.
Yeah. And that's how bad Bush 2 was.
Okay.
You know?
I've got a question for your generation.
Oh, boy.
Talking to younger potential voters in my area, RRD, it doesn't matter to them. Their whole adult life has been a financial and social programs, and all those things were a loss for them. So that you and I talk about that all the time.
Yeah, anyone who says that Republicans and Democrats are the same that's intellectual, disingenuous nonsense. I guarantee the Democrats aren't trying to control their internal organs.
Nope.
And that's exactly what the Republicans are doing right now. They want to tell you what you can do with the internal organs of your body for 52% of the population of this country. That's nonsense. I guarantee you that the Republicans would absolutely have no problem poisoning the rivers and the water that you drink, or the air that you breathe, or the food that you eat. So they would absolutely do that without even a question, because money.
I've got a question, an international question. This is Ian. He's in Scotland. A friend of mine who is in the know thinks 45 invited Viktor Orban to Mar-a-Lago to give documents to him so Orban could give them to Putin. Does that sound crazy? But
no. That does not sound crazy to me. Trump.
But it's easier to transfer them electronically.
No. Well, the thing is with electronic transfers, there's an electronic transfer, so there's evidence. If it's hard copy, it's in a briefcase and it's, on a plane.
That's true. My child, that's the security expert, I said, what if you had something you really wanted to hide and can make a complete secret? And I was told to get a small case that would carry the document, go dig a hole, put the document, the case and the document in the ground, bury it, and never tell anyone else where it is. That's the only way.
No, hard copy it's almost like so low tech, and you understand the institutions that govern that kind of stuff are looking at trillions of documents, right? And they're all digital. In fact, they did a lot of that digitizing in the 80s and 90s when I was a policy analyst back in the wee back days when I was a baby political consultant. I was a policy analyst for a legislative seat. And we would go, because of the Sunshine Act, we would go through all of these terribly just horribly scanned documents that were probably faxes originally. So it's just terrible on terrible, but you could read them. And it's probably the reason I have to wear glasses now, because I read all of them. Hard copy is definitely the best. That's why they're top secret documents, and they're in a folder, and it says top secret, because that means that no one could hack your computer and get them, because they're hard copy. They're not going anywhere. Okay. Also, they're easier to keep track of. That's why, much like you check out library books, When you're dealing with top secret material in the federal government, or you check it out. That's why they knew what Trump had. That's why when he said, "Oh, I didn't have it," they're like, "No, you do." Because not only do we have you checking this out, we have you on camera leaving with it. So,
it's so very true. Everyone should stop doing armchair politics. Trust me. That's why when I first started reading cards, I didn't do politics at all, because there was too much of convincing people sitting there whining about it was doing something.
I am all about Wolf Girl.
Yeah, we need to get out there. Thank you, Wolf Girl.
That's awesome. You're absolutely right. No, it's own your precinct. You want to change. It's and the thing is, like, if everyone just did that, then it would blow your mind the change that would happen. I already saw it happen in 08. I know what happened. I saw it.
We saw it. What the other thing you can do is take 4 or 5 friends who might not have the transportation or just the get up to go, grab them, stick them in your car, tell them you're going to stop at the ice cream shop and get an ice cream cone on the way home, and make sure they go vote. And it would be really helpful if they would vote the whole ticket, because just making Joe Biden president and having nothing but little red Republicans underneath him
needs help.
Will not help.
You gotta help. You gotta help the guys at the top of the ticket, and the guys who help the top of the ticket are the guys in the bottom of the ticket.
If small red states have so much power, and this woman lives in Alaska, that's why her nickname's Cold Toes. Why isn't more done to influence their election? And I can tell you, because it's hard as hell to get in.
They make it very difficult. They really do. They don't want to lose control. I mean, also they play dirty as hell. We were running a congressional race. This was back in 06, I think, up in North Texas. And we knew people that would have donated to our candidate, except for the fact that you would end up on a campaign finance report. And then all of a sudden, front of their business would have road construction until they were out of business. That's a fact.
It's true.
We saw it happen in real time, right in front of us.
And that campaign ran across 10 counties?
Texarkana to Dallas County. It's a lot. It's more than 10.
Yeah. But we did win Honey Grove. It's a real, when you hear that, whoa, Honey Grove, that's a real town. And these 2 sisters said, we're so sick of Honey Grove looking like a little red dot, that they took it upon themselves. We gave them all the information, gave them all the literature, gave them everything they could do. They turned Honey Grove blue.
Yeah, they did.
They did.
Yep.
It can happen.
And I tell you, you got to knock on a door 5 times, right? And every day you knock, you're going to find different people at home, And I'll actually tell you, there's what I've noticed since COVID, because I've been doing this for 25 years. So I see trends that the only way you'd see them is if you literally did this work for a quarter century. Because more people are working remote, they're home. So our response rate at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday is twice what it was 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah. We used to have to go out at 8 a.m. on Saturdays and piss them off by waking them up.
Yeah, because that's when they were home.
And in Texas, reasonably, there are soliciting laws, so you can't go after dark. So
right. Also, and there's a couple of things you got to know about canvassing. Those of you that are going to do this, if you're in Texas, if you're definitely in Dallas, do not knock on any doors if the Dallas Cowboys are playing. Do yourself a favor. They'll be home, but they'll just be very angry.
Yes.
You'll lose votes. It's messed up.
He's a Cowboy fan. Okay.
I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
I think I found you a worker, Sean.
Oh, Wisconsin. Yes.
That's Wolf Girl Oracle that said to get off the couch. Sean, do you have a way people can get in touch with you if they were up in those areas? Do you have a I know you guys are in the middle of building up there.
Yeah, we're tell you what. Yes, and give me about 24 hours, but if Nancy Jean's got your information and she can hunt you down, she'll get you the information I give her.
Nancy can't. You got to hunt me down. You can get a hold of me, and I do have that in my banners.
There you go. I'll add, well, can we add it later?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can
great.
put it in now. I mean,
Okay.
but not. That's not the best one to use. We're going to use. And we're losing people, so I think people have decided they've learned what they're going to from us. So we're going to cut this off in a few minutes.
No worries. Well, I'm going to tell you, if anyone from Wisconsin's listening, you guys are
You get a hold of me, and I'll get it to Sean.
Yeah.
I can find him.
But anyone who's listening from Wisconsin, you guys, man, that was God's work. 13 years of trudging. I mean,
oh yeah, one of my best friends from high school is up there she called me the night that the original idiot that went up there that was funded by the Kochs. She called me and she said, "What can we do? This guy's against education." She was a professor at the time. No, we don't want you. And Pammy called me and said, how do you do a recall election? And I said, think about it very carefully, because you're going to have a recall election, then there's going to be another election, and people are going to get tired, and and that's what happened is every time that grew out, the Republicans took more and more advantage of it and ended up.
And also they controlled the maps. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it's like you're playing on a board. It's like you're playing with Monopoly and you're given $1 and then they already own all the properties. I mean, there's literally very little you can do unless you've got major demographic changes that can't be compensated for in a 10-year timeline. So real quick, just before we head out, this is an important piece of information. Every 10 years they redraw the maps. 2030 is going to be a very, very important cycle across the country, because at the state house and state senate level, because that's when they redraw the maps, because the people that get elected take the census data and then gerrymander the hell out of it.
Well,
so like until 2030 is going to be a huge cycle. We gotta do something.
The last census data has some questions in it. I had friends who were working the census because I'd worked it for a couple of different cycles, and they were telling me that they were in the inner city going, and this was the height of COVID, going, getting information. And they would be approached by the people running the census saying, "Hey, we'll give you a bonus if you go out here to Nowhere, East Texas," which is, and
there's a lot of Nowhere, East Texas.
And then one group of people from Dallas got sent to Oklahoma because there was such a distortion of information. They went out and they found all these houses that the census workers had said weren't there, that were there. Anyway, the last census is going to be the one with a big fat asterisk next to it.
Yeah, no, for real. And what sucks is that's the data that we have to use, because there's nothing else.
Right.
That's why I like looking at voter reg data, the flat-based voter reg, because it's like I have never understood alcohol.
Okay.
Well,
Cole Toast, we can tell you this, and you've talked to me about this. That's a gerrymandered mess, and that's a control. He went from winning by 16 or 18 to he only won by 2.5 when he ran against Beto.
Yeah.
And I sat in a car. I took an old friend who couldn't get to the polls any other way to do curbside voting, and they had to return the first box that they brought out to him because every time he'd vote for Beto, it would show Cruz. I saw that with my own eyes. Guys.
Also, I mean, what you definitely saw a change when they got rid of straight ticket, and that was a Republican idea, which I laughed at, because their voters tend to be about 20 years older than Democrats on average, and that all they had to do was hit the R button and walk away. So what really hurt Ted in the Beto cycle was the last time he ran, because he ran 2012. I had a friend that got stuck in a green room with that interesting person. You should also have him on your show. He's brilliant.
Love to.
He ran for U.S. Senate as a Democrat, and he got stuck in a green room with Ted Cruz, and he couldn't get out of that room fast enough. That was 2012. So he runs again in 2018. That's the Beto cycle. Beto got within 300,000 votes of Cruz. You got to understand, the Republicans really hated Obama for lots of really messed up reasons that had more to do with melanin than anything else. And so I think Ted's in trouble, depending, whoever gets into the Democratic general, and whoever it's going to be is who it's going to be.
Colin outraised him. Colin outraised him, and Colin doesn't take PAC money.
Yeah, well, and like I said, any candidate doesn't take PAC money is.
I understand. I
know.
Hold your tongue.
For entertainment purposes. So yeah, that's why Ted wins. That's why Ted won in 2012. That's why Ted won in 2018. He's got problems. You're right. He's not beloved. Also, quite honestly, when you tell your voter universe not to get vaccinated and then a bunch of them die, well, those are voters. So
I can assure you, the policies they have going on.
Yeah, the different policies definitely change the mind. Like if you were a Republican before COVID and you had Trump telling them to put bleach in their tea, I mean, are you going to still vote Republican? Probably not. Or you might not vote at all. There's some simple math that works, right? If you're a Republican and you vote Republican and they know you're going to vote, that's worth one Republican vote. If you don't vote Republican and your Republican vote they're counting on, that's effectively a Democratic vote. Now, if you're a Republican and they think you're going to vote Republican and you don't vote Republican, but then you do vote Democrat, technically by the math, that's worth 2 votes. Those switch voters are twice as powerful as a Republican voter that doesn't vote.
Right. That's why we need to get out and talk to our friends.
That's why we got to talk to people.
Yes, writing all my Michiganders in office in Fed. So this is oil painter. This is Diana. And she, so Diana, he's going to be up in your area.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. That seems to be where they're sending us this cycle. So that'll be fun. And needless to say, those are all states that are in play big time.
And like I said, if you're interested in trying to find out how to reach Sean, you can write to him through my email.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
next time we do this, I'll actually have a solid email that I can send them that they can then come in and, But yeah, I'll be in. It's Wisconsin, it's Pennsylvania, and it's Michigan. That's where we're going. That's where everyone's going to be. Wisconsin, like I said, has like 30 races that just blew up. So, I mean, it's going to be.
That's fun.
Everyone.
It's going to be. You're going to be totally new ground. So. So anyway.
Yeah, no, all those races are brand new. Yeah, your vote is about to super count in Wisconsin if you live there. I mean, more than it's counted in 2 decades. It's going to be amazing.
Okay,
that's a great note to end on.
Oops. I'm looking at trying to see if there's anything. Somebody went over, Andrea, and signed up for Ballotpedia. You can get they only send stuff if you'd really be interested in, and they don't give you clickbait titles. You'll know if it's something you're really going to.
Their titles are extremely boring.
And let's see, go this. Thanks to Cold Toes for coming out of the Alaska. Whoa. Between her and Angla, it takes me 3 days to thaw out after I teach a class. There's some proof, there's some underlying information that's showing that Republican women are not doing what people think they're doing.
Well, what you saw is interesting. I was watching the South Carolina numbers go in because they have this thing called exit polling, right? It's where they talk to voters that are walking out, and 9 times out of 10, couples vote together, right? And actually, we've seen this in our canvassing before too. If you looked at the exit polling, you would have thought, I mean, Trump was supposed to win by 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
But what you had was a bunch of women who were standing next to their husband saying, yes, I voted for Trump, who did not.
Mm-hmm.
They voted for Nikki Haley.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask them and their husband's standing right next to them,
They're
oh
gonna
yeah,
say, I
all
voted.
day. Well, that was a 30-point swing between exit polling and the actual election. 30 points.
Yeah, Trump's numbers are so screwed up, and I don't even want to. I hate to say the man's name, but the oh, poor somebody. The only person that's ever knocked on their door are Mormons. Ooh, that's sad.
Some of my
So
best friends are Mormons.
I know, but probably in general, that's not a great population. But
Well, I don't know. Mitt Romney wrote a pretty solid book. That was like, hey, GOP, here's a bus.
Yeah, and he could have done when he could have done something about it, he didn't. But
oh, you're right.
one of the things that I did is one of the last campaigns I ran, we would use when we would pick the people doors to go to, we always made sure it had a Democratic voter in it. And it's a long story, but there's a way you can tell from the Dallas voter reg. You can't tell who they voted for, but you can see that in the primary they voted Democratic. So, and we were this young guy. He was like, he went up, knocked on the door, and this big burly man showed up, and he said, "Well, I'm here to support." It was a guy that was running for state house in 108. Was it?
No,
No,
107.
107. And the guy said, "Well, we've already spoken to our Republican people." And the guy goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. He's running as a Democrat." And the guy goes, "Why the hell are you at my door? Why is a Democrat standing on my doorstep?" And the guy who was doing the polling, he looked beyond the guy, and the man's wife was standing straight down the hallway going, "Go away, go away." So, and that was back in 07. So we already knew they were moving. Anyway, I'm going to close with this. This has been super helpful. Thank you for bringing your son. Very informative. Thank you, Singing Tree. I don't think I've seen your name before. So, and if you've made it this far with me, please like this show and subscribe to my channel so that I can grow my numbers, because that's the only way that YouTube sends your interesting information on. And just because it's so important this year, I will be doing more politics. Scott wanted to see how this went, and we'll see. Instead of just listening, I think the cards can tell us a lot, and I enjoy swinging my pendulum as much as possible. But I'd like to be able to move people so that they can really help the process. And thank you, and goodbye to everyone. And you have a lovely Sunday, and enjoy nice weather. If you're where it's still nice weather, it's going to get crappy here again. But anyway, bye. Takes it a minute.